All right, let's go ahead and get this started. I'm gonna hope that the music is not too loud, so I don't want it to be distracting from the original lesson. Before getting into like the absolute like meat of this whole lesson, I do want to point out that since this is recorded for YouTube for like future reference and whatnot, since it's meant to be a more serious or learning stream or environment for today, I have disabled a lot of my usual redeems and sounds for this. And I just earlier you saw like there was a follow that was kind of loud. I turned that down because I turned down the wrong thing earlier. Smart. So even like follows and everything are turned down. I've disabled chat cat. So I've just kind of got everything turned down. I don't want too many distractions for those who are trying to watch on YouTube later on. With that said though, I'd also like to let you guys know a bit about how these lessons are gonna go. I'm gonna have them sectioned off into parts, and I'm gonna try to figure out how to section up YouTube videos for those rewatching on YouTube, so that people can more easily skip through the different parts as needed. Thank you, Pink Cow, for the follow. I'll be going over some more basic like terms, hotkeys, and like good habits for Blender to begin this, before putting them all to use by creating an item in Blender with you guys. I don't recommend following along. I actually recommend just watching, getting an understanding of the workflow and how that's all gonna happen, and then follow it through YouTube, because then at that point, you will have the ability to kind of plan ahead with some of your actions, because I want your end version of what I'm making to look different than mine. I want you to have your own creativity with it. I'm like, I have like a script planned and I'm completely going off track with it. So, by the way, yes, making your own. I will be expecting homework. You're not required to do homework. but I will be expecting at least some of you to turn in homework. There are homework rewards, and I'll get to that in a minute. But when you go to turn in homework, you will receive a full-on 3D asset that I've made for you, which will be, it'll fall under Creative Commons license. Let me go ahead and copy this link real quick. Each different lesson is going to have a different homework assignment and therefore a different asset for you guys to get. Here is a URL in the chat for Creative Commons license, so you can kind of give a better idea of like the ins and outs of that. Or if you don't care, TLDR. Basically, it's yours. You do with as you please. You could fucking sell it. You could give it away, whatever. You've earned it. It's yours. But after I've gone through product making, assigning your homework, then at the end of each lesson, I will be ending my recording for YouTube because I do have this being recorded right now. And I will open up for a live Q&A for you to ask questions, whether it be about today's lesson or even just some help with a personal project that you might be working on. You can ask whatever. I'll help you with whatever. So long as it's on topic with, you know, what the class is about. When you choose to turn in your homework at the end of each lesson, the best way to go about that is to join my Discord, which can be found here, linked in chat, or for those on YouTube, I will have both the Creative Commons URL and the Discord URL linked down in the description. And the best way to handle that is just post some pictures in the homework tray channel in the creative corner. I don't have notifications turned off in my Discord, so I'll see it right away. You don't have to tag me or anything. But it can, that channel can be found just under the Blender class notes channel, which is where all of the lesson videos with their relevant Google Doc of information will be posted. Again, Google Doc will also be posted in the description of YouTube video. Okay, so with that out of the way, again, keep in mind, it is best to not really worry about following along just yet. I recommend just sitting back, watching, listening to me ramble about a bunch of really boring shit, and then following along after this is up on YouTube. It'll just be easier to pause and work at your own pace. Yes, Sev. Serious mode. You were right. Serious mode. So now I to actually properly begin the classes, I do want to get into vocabulary. We're back in English class. There are a lot of different terms that are used in 3D modeling than what is normally heard in day-to-day life. And I'd like to go over some of what you might hear me say during this session, or at least some of what's good to just understand. A lot of this is going to be understanding the UI and how to navigate it. So I'm just going to start with our first word, word. It's kind of an abbreviation, which is UVs, UV maps. A UV map is nothing more than basically an unwrap of the item. So if you remember back in geometry class, the best way to describe that, or actually help you understand it, is kind of to use a visual. Because you can see you've got 3D model. When it unwraps, which is basically how you create a UV. Actually, the best way to show that is by using this little graphic here. This is how you unwrap an item or an object. Cube is extremely basic, but it kind of gets the point across there. this is how you're going to translate your model from a 3D format to a 2D one so that you can color on it. You can make it look the way that you're imagining. Or, you know, in other words, texture it. The texture is I know texture is usually used for a whole nother kind of word, but in 3D modeling, it is just the 2D image that you've laid on top of your model. So in this case, you can see it's the map of the world that was laid on top of this sphere. That would be the texture, and the UV map simply defines how that is going to lay on top of your model. Next we have vertices. So I'm going to go into my freshly opened file here. You'll see down in the bottom right, I have something called screencast keys. This is going to show you exactly what buttons I'm pressing. So if you're ever unsure what I've pressed, or maybe I've forgotten to tell you, you can always check right there. It's helpful for the YouTube video and whatnot as well. Like, feel free to pause, rewind if I'm going a little too fast for you. But if I press tab to go into edit mode, you will see these little black dots around my model. And I'll describe what I'm doing here a little more once we get more into the lesson. This is simply to show these are what's called a vertex or vertices. These are important because you have to manage them on your model at all times. They're kind of what defines how your model looks. Drawing lines between vertices and filling them in is it's kind of how you draw out your model in a 3D format. Which kind of brings us into what topology is. Topology is basically the array of how your vertices, edges, and faces are all set up. So you have your vertices, which are the dots, your edges, which are the lines here, and your faces, which are these full squares here. I'm gonna go ahead and undo that because I don't want these on here for what we're making today. But topology can be made in quite a few different ways. It is best practice to keep your topology as what is called quads, which is what you saw with all these squares here. However, it is possible to make other kinds of faces. So if I take my K tool here, and I'll just cut across here, you'll see that we have a face right here that has 5 different dots that make it up, 5 different vertices. And this is what's called an n-gon, which is just basically anything above 4 vertices, 4 edges. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges to make up one face. N-gons are typically something to avoid. If you have an n-gon, it's time to start looking at your topology and trying to figure out what can I do to remove this n-gon. In the other direction, there are things called tris, which that's pretty self-explanatory. It's a triangle. These can, if you're making something that is meant to be rigged or moving, such as an avatar, hi, I'm an avatar, it is best to avoid tris as much as possible because they will cause your mesh to move in a bit of an odd way. So avoiding tris, avoiding n-gons, keeping your topology as clean as you can using as much quads as you can is generally the best way to go. And there are a lot of cases, however, where tris are absolutely acceptable and no one's gonna be pissy and get mad at you for having some fucking tris on your mesh. Let's see. Actually, I don't think I'm going to get into FBX files just yet, because we're not really exporting that. So let me remove that real quick. The next thing to get into is origin. So the origin of your mesh in Blender is going to be, you'll see this little orange dot right here. That is your origin. That is where your mesh is originated at. You'll see there is a little orange dot that has followed my mesh. Now, if I were to go into edit mode and move my mesh over here, you'll notice that it stays. So when in object mode, which the modes are shown up in the top left here, there's quite a few of them. You don't need to worry about many of them. All we're working with today is object and edit. I'll show you the others on a later date. But tab, by the way, is the button of how you get between object and edit mode. It's just a quick little hotkey of tabbing in and out of object and edit. While in object mode, you'll notice it moved my origin. In edit mode, I have been able to move my mesh away from its origin. Generally, you want your mesh focused around your origin. That is going to determine how your mesh mirrors. It's always best to have your origin at 0, 0, 0 within your file. And I'll show you how to always reset your origin in case you have accidentally moved it. But I'll do that in just a bit. Because the next thing I want to get into is your cursor. Now, usually that's, your mouse moving around your screen. But in this case, that's not really quite it. In Blender, your cursor is this little red and white circle that you're seeing here. And as I click around, you'll see it kind of moves. This is used for a variety of different things. However, I typically use it for reference for things. But if I do maybe Shift S, cursor to world origin, it'll throw my cursor at 0, 0, 0. And then I can do Control, Alt, Shift, C. I know it's a real long hotkey. I'm sorry. I didn't pick it. I can do origin to 3D cursor. And the 3D cursor is what I was talking about before. And now my origin is no longer up over here. My shape still hasn't moved. But my origin is now in place where I need it to be. And that's just how you can correct your origin as needed whenever you're working on a project. It'll help make it so when you say go to import your object somewhere, you won't have to worry so much about if it's gonna appear like way off screen. It'll be centered where you need it to be. Next, I'm gonna get into what's called orthographic and perspective views. Big words, I'm sorry. However, you don't have to memorize them because they are shown up in the top left of your screen here. See, it says user perspective. All these is how you're viewing your mesh within Blender. It's typically preferred to use what's called orthographic view, which is kind of a flatter, less perspective view, because perspective, I'm sure you guys all understand what perspective means at this point if you are here learning a goddamn 3D program. However, if I press 5 on my numpad, you'll see my view is kind of changed. The best way to kind of show what this does is while looking at my cube, I'm going to go to an absolute side view, which is 3 on my numpad. And if I press 5 again, you'll see how my shape kind of pops out at me. So I'll press 5 again. Let's go back to my side view. And it just kind of perspective, you can see the perspective lines of how one would usually draw maybe a background on an image. You'll see the perspective lines on the bottom of my scene here. Kind of emulating that. Press 5, it turns into a completely flat grid. Now, I usually find it easiest, if not best, to work within orthographic view, which is what you're seeing here. But I have seen people do some really good work in perspective view. So it's really up to your comfort of how you want to work. Next thing I'm going to get into is modifiers. So if you remember me talking about mirror earlier, I'll scoot my block over a little bit because I want it on one side of my origin here. I pressed 1, by the way, to go into front view. And you'll see there's my origin still in the center of my screen. If I go to this blue little wrench here, this is where I'll find my modifiers. Now I can add a modifier, and there's a lot of words here. Little intimidating. But that's what these are, is modifiers. The most commonly used one is mirror, so that you can go in and modify a shape or mesh, and it will perfectly mirror whatever you're doing. You can change which axis this is mirroring over using, the different axes views here. So now when I go to numpad 1, I can only see one view, but if I go to side view, which is 3, it's mirroring over the y-axis instead of the x-axis. Most commonly, you're going to want to use y unless you're, working on a special kind of project that requires you to use either y or z. But you're going to usually want to use x-axis, which is the default. And throughout different lessons, I'll go into different modifiers and how to use them. But for now, that's just kind of the number one modifier to keep in mind, because it's going to be the most helpful one. And this is a bit of a general idea of how to use it. And where to find modifiers in case maybe you're watching a different tutorial and you need to understand where that's at. And then I do have edit mode and object mode within my list here. I'm gonna remove a couple of these other modes because we don't need to go over those right now. There we go. Sorry, I have a whole Google Doc of notes that I'll be linking for you guys, and I just want to make sure I keep that cleaned up so that it's only what I've gone over in the lesson. However, edit mode and object mode. So again, you'll find them up in the top left here. Tab to kind of tab back and forth between them. In object mode, you cannot edit your mesh. I am clicking around trying to select different parts of my mesh. The most I can do is kind of move it around, but that's generally bad practice when making a mesh, is moving it in object mode. So I want to tab into edit mode. I can now tap A twice until I have everything selected. Now I can move things around. Edit mode is generally what you're going to use to modify your mesh. It's where you can make all of your main edits. And then object mode is just kind of where you'll see it. Object mode allows you to, if you say have multiple different meshes. So let me go on ahead and add a couple more into this scene. Object mode will allow me to tab into object mode, select a different mesh, edit mode. I can now edit this separately. Object mode, let's grab this mesh. Let's edit this separately. I've seen people get rather confused when moving between modes, not understanding why they can or cannot edit their mesh. They'll try to do a certain hotkey or whatnot. However, it's not working. There are different hotkeys for different things, some of which kind of overlap between all of the different modes. So if a hotkey that you're attempting to do is not working while you're trying to edit your mesh, chances are you might be in the wrong mode. So always just go up and check that you're in the right mode. And then the last thing I'm going to go over is just wireframe. So I'm going to tap Z on my keyboard, and that's going to instantly make everything kind of transparent. I can see through my entire mesh now, but there are these black lines showing my topology. This is my wireframe. That's what that is called. This is the wireframe of my mesh, and you will see there is actually a modifier that you can find called wireframe. If I enable that, it'll just straight up turn my mesh into a wireframe. So if you wanted to make a mesh that had kind of a cool neat where it's, or a cool neat, what? A cool look to it, you could, or a cool kind of like techie look to it, you could create your mesh, create some cool topology on it, and then show off all your topology by making it a wireframe. It does increase your topology because if I go and apply this and then tab into edit mode, you'll see now this is a completely changed mesh. My vertices are all different. Where I used to have one vertex, I now have like 4 or 5. So it does absolutely change your mesh. However, that's just kind of what the wireframe of your mesh is that general shape that your topology makes up. The spaghetti or spider web of your topology. So vocabulary done. I want to make a little side note of it is a generally good rule of thumb to kind of learn how to texture a 3D model before learning how to do any 3D art. Because in the end, your end goal is to make a good UV map for you or maybe someone else to color on, to make your 3D model come to life in the end. So it's typically good practice to kind of keep the UV map in mind, learn how to maybe 2D texture before 3D modeling. So I'm gonna go on ahead and create a new file here. I'm gonna just not save that. So this is what your file will look like upon loading it up. I'm going to go into my preferences here before getting into properly showing you a lot of stuff. And I'm going to go into key map. And I'm going to set up at the top here. I believe this will just be set to Blender when you first open this up, but I'm setting mine to Blender 27X. And this is just going to set it into the hotkey setup or key binding, basically key map of what I'm going to be using for the lesson. I just find this easier for me to use. It's compatible with a workflow that I'm very comfortable with. So it's just kind of what I'll be teaching in is the 27X key map. And then you can just exit that and now it'll be middle mouse to move around. Right click, I can hold it to like move my object around. Not best. Let me open that back up. But now you'll have the same key bindings as I'll do. One way to test if you have your key map set up same way as mine is if you left click, your cursor will move around. If I left click on like my camera here or the light back here or even my mesh, it will not select it. That is how you know you are in the same key binding as I am. If I right click, however, it will select these things. Speaking of controls, there are a few different controls to go over that I will be using. So we have, of course, orthographic and perspective, which is 5 on numpad. Let's throw myself into orthographic. I have 3 on numpad for side view, 1 for front view, 7 for top view, and 9 to just reverse whatever view I'm seeing my mesh from. All of these hotkeys, all of these visual controls, all of that is going to be in the doc, by the way. So don't feel bad if you forget some of this. The document will tell you all of it. However, now there's 4, 8, 6, and 2 on my numpad, which are just the little, you'll see they're the ones on the numpad with the arrows. You can use these to kind of adjust the way you're looking at your mesh. I don't normally use this unless I need to do something specific. So like say straight front view, and then I'll tap 6 3 times. That'll give me a straight on angle of that corner of my cube here. So sometimes you may need to get a straight on angle of something like that. That's kind of just how you accomplish that. Let's see, I've gone over middle mouse, right click. So There's also, there's some commands or hotkeys that if you're not remembering what it is, can't find it because you don't even fully remember the name. But if you remember a part of the name, a portion of the name, or maybe I say in one of the tutorials what the name of it is, you can tap space on your keyboard at any time and search things up. So let's do extrude. Actually, is extrude on this? No. Is unwrap on this? No, it used to be. Actually, I'm in object mode. So I wonder. Let's go into edit mode. There it is, unwrap. So see, object and edit mode even change what you're searching and what you are capable of doing. So unwrap, again, will just be how you unwrap your UV map. So if you forget how to do that, you can literally just go in, unwrap your UV map by typing in the space. Sometimes this will tell you what the hotkey is, so you can kind of get a reminder. But again, it'll all be in the doc. If you have multiple items in your scene, and you want to maybe add to a selection that you have on here, so I can right click to select, sure. But say I want to add to my selection, I can hold shift on my keyboard and right click, and it will add to whatever I have selected here. There's the hotkey L, which is linked. I can hold shift L, or actually tap L while I am over something. And actually that's deselecting things. So I can go L, L, or shift L, 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 L. To deselect, and all that is linked. Select linked or deselect linked. L is for linked. There's also to help with the movement of your screen. If you want to maybe slide your screen over a bit, you can hold shift and middle mouse to kind of scoot your screen around. And now the center of where my screen kind of rotates is in a different area here. So that'll just kind of help with, like, maybe you're trying to focus on a specific part of your mesh and you're not really understanding how to get there. You can, let's see, say I want to focus on just this top corner here. I'm just going to scroll in and use my middle mouse. Let's go side view. Okay. Let's move this over, zoom in. Now my focus is around this upper edge of this cube right here. And I can zoom out and it'll still be focused on that upper edge. It'll just kind of help you navigate throughout the whole UI to get an understanding of what you're looking at, because 3D can be confusing. And then, yeah, last, I already said it, is scrolling to zoom in and out. Kind of a simple, everyone uses it in all their games and everything. Super simple to understand. Scroll wheel is zoom. So I'm going to tap into object mode, and I'm actually going to tap A, which is all, and delete everything in my scene, because that's good practice. Everyone has a trash cube. We don't know where they all go. They just kind of run away from us. If you don't want to start with a cube for your project, you can Shift S, cursor to world origin, and then Control Alt Shift, or actually no, just Shift S, and then go add mesh in the top left over here. And there's actually a whole bunch of different shapes to choose from. One of the more common ones is something called a UV sphere. This is used a lot. However, this has quite a lot of topology on it, especially if you plan on using something called a subdivision modifier later on, which just kind of doubles your topology. So one thing that you can look at is actually my ugly butt is in the way here. Can I scoot this over? I absolutely cannot. Let me scoot myself over. Can I? I can kind of lean out of the way. Let me hide myself for just a moment here. There we go. You'll see there's different sections to this little menu that pops up. Again, it'll probably start popped up like this, kind of small, hard to notice. But if you pop it open, you'll see segments, and I can slide this up and down and kind of change the topology of my sphere here. This is only something that shows up when you initially put your sphere in the scene. And it's good practice to kind of lower it so you have something a little more like this. Because chances are you're going to want to add something, again, like subdivision, which is going to do this. It's going to absolutely modify your mesh to the point it kind of smooths it out. That is the whole point of this modifier. And it doubles your topology. So I'm seeing a lot of topology here, but if I tap into edit mode, you'll see it's changed back to what my original shape was. Let me minimize this back and show myself back. There we go. Hi, I'm back. I've returned. So I'm not gonna go over all the hotkeys that I have listed here. I do have a lot of them listed. Just know that I do have, I believe, all general hotkeys that I use in this, I'm gonna be using in this tutorial listed on the Google Doc for this. So if you ever forget a hotkey, they are all labeled. So that'll be in the doc. It'll be good to have that open when you go to follow the tutorial later on YouTube. Let me look through my notes here. Okay, so now I can start the actual lesson. So I'm going to actually go add. I can see my cursor is in the center of my scene. That's where my mesh is going to spawn its origin here. So I can go add mesh cube because we're going to be making a treasure chest. Those of you who have seen my previous tutorials that were meant for Second Life have probably already seen treasure chests. This one's going to be a little more basic. I just kind of want to teach you guys the basics of how to work in the UI. But we are going to start with a treasure chest. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to view from a front view. And I'm going to, let's go into wireframe so I can see through my mesh. I'm going to select all 4 of these bottom vertices here. And I'm going to, actually, no. Let's go ahead and select all this. And I'm going to S for scale. And I'm going to hold middle mouse to kind of change the axis on which my mesh is going to scale on. And we're going to scale, let's go about there for our chest size. And then I'll go on ahead and select these and I will shrink down this bottom face here. And that's just gonna kind of taper our chest in a little bit of a satisfying way. Then I can go on ahead and I could even go into like face select, for example. So I can select this whole face. I don't have to worry about selecting all the vertices of a face. And I will tap E to extrude up. And this is, so you can see this blue line that's kind of appearing in the middle of the screen here. That's showing me which axis this is already extruding on. Now I could pick like X or Y if it's not extruding on the axis I want, or if it's not extruding on any axis, I can pick which axis I'd like for it to extrude on for a little bit more of a precise extrusion. But I'm gonna go ahead and lift this up to, let's go about here. This is gonna become our lid. So I'm going to edge select these 2 parts here. Oh, nope, okay. Edge select it is then. And we're going to Control B or bevel. And if I scroll while beveling, you'll notice I can round out the top of my chest a little better. I'm just gonna probably go about here. That's round, that's cute. There's not a lot of topology here, which is perfect. But now I can kind of take this top and tap V, which is separate. Kind of picture it as, say you have an L or a straight line of vertices. If you were to split the top of it, it would create a V, separate them. That's kind of the best way that I know how to remember that hotkey. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to tap L on it. I'm going to tap P, which is a different type of separate. So this is separating it between different objects so that when I go into object mode, I'll be selecting these as 2 separate objects. So I'm going to go selection because I want my selection to be separated. And now I can go on ahead and select these separately. I believe the bottom of my chest is a little long here. So I'm going to go G, Z. So G is move. Z is the axis I want it to move on. And I'm just going to pull it up a little. So now I have just the bottom selected. So let's go ahead and hide this. Go back, tab. And let's go ahead and add maybe a nice border to our chest. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and re-add a face here. And I will, from a front view, let's cut our chest in half. So whatever we're doing on one side works on the other. So I did Control R, clicked, and then right clicked. So the click kind of confirmed where I wanted this orange line to go. Let me do that again, Control R. You'll see it shows up as a yellow line. If I click, the orange line shows up. But now it kind of slides back and forth on my mesh. So I will do right click, which will keep it just in the exact center of my mesh. I'll just go into wireframe mode and I'll use B and select this and then X vertices. So now I'm going to go into my modifiers and I'll add a mirror modifier so that anything I do on one side will happen on the other. So now I can go on ahead and go in and add an extra row of edges here and then a couple here. So let's do one at the top of my chest, one at the bottom. Let's view from a side view because I'm going to want, do Control R again. There we go. I'm gonna want it on the different sides here. So we've got kind of our edges laid out for us here. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and select all. I'll go into face select and I'll hold shift and I'll deselect these faces that I don't want. And so now I can tap E to extrude. And actually that is not extruding that how I want. So instead, let's do this the other way. I'm going to select the different faces here. This is not extruding how I want. So let's go ahead and do this a bit at a time. So there's my extrusion. I'll right click to keep it in place. Now keep in mind, because I've right clicked, that hasn't canceled my exclusion or my extrusion. There's still another set of vertices here. And I see this done a lot where you'll tap E to extrude something and then right click to go, oh, no, I want to cancel that. That's not what I wanted to do. And then those vertices are still there and that's going to mess with your mesh later on. So if you have found yourself doing that, you can, undo, of course. Or if your vertices are still there, I'll go into vertex select here and I'll go ahead and show you, see, those vertices are still there. I can tap A until everything is selected, go M, and by distance. M is merge. Merge can mean, there's at center, at cursor. There's just straight up collapse, which I don't ever really use. But then by distance is if it's right on top of another vertex, it's going to just merge those two together. And at the bottom of your screen, let me undo it real quick. And then I'll do M by distance. You'll see at the bottom of my screen, a little blue thing pops up saying removed 8 vertices. So that's how many extras I had that were overlapping another vertex. So I'll go ahead and select these. I'll view from a side view. I'll extrude, right click, and I'm going to S for scale and just kind of move these in. I'm gonna do the same thing from a front view here, but this time I don't need to really do 2 at once because my mirror on the other side is working. However, this is not really extruding on an axis that I want. This blue line is showing up a little funny, so let's tap X, and now it's extruding on the axis that I want. So now we're starting to get this nice border. I see there's a face here that I don't want, so I can select it, X, faces. This X faces. And that'll happen sometimes with a mirror. If you extrude something that's connected to where the mirror connects, you'll likely get like that extra face there. You can just go into face select it, X faces, done. So I can go ahead and go here, E to extrude, Z to make sure it's on the right axis, lift it up. There's my little extra face, so X faces. I'm gonna tab into object mode so you can get a better view of what is the bottom of our chest. I'm gonna take a moment though, just real quick. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, one of the downsides to doing this live. I'll make a little skip for this in the YouTube video once I figure it out, but let me go ahead and do this real quick. I will be right back. Okay, I have returned. I'm so sorry for that. Bathroom break, yeah. So if you need to take a bathroom break, hopefully you took it. Sorry, I'm not exactly a robot, so it's hard for me to sit for too long without going potty. However, Nuclear saying, thanks for the class so far. Of course, absolutely. I love teaching Blender. I love seeing people's creativity, so I enjoy this. Let me go ahead and go back to my live screen here, and we'll resume the lesson. So I'll go ahead and find a way to skip that in the video recording. I'm sorry. So we're going to just kind of resume where we left off. So we're going to proceed by going to the top of our chest here. And we're going to make the inside of our chest. So I'm going to view from a side view. I'm going to tap E. I'm going to go down to, let's go to about here. Make sure this is on the Z axis here. Let's go about there. And then I can shrink. And I'm going to make sure it's just on this axis. And I'm going to try to keep this at the same angle that the rest of our chest is on. And then we've got, you know, our centralized face, so I can X faces. There's the inside of my chest. Now I'm noticing there's a bit of what's called clipping right here, where part of my mesh is intersecting with another part. So let's go to the front view here. Yeah, so I can see it's intersecting right here. So let's grab our face at the bottom. Front view, Z. I'm going to tap G and then X and move it in. And actually, well, wait, hold on. Let's go to my mirror modifier here because that didn't work as intended. There is a option here on the right called clipping. If you enable that, it will make it so things will not clip into itself while being mirrored, only on the central axis. So if I tap G and X now when I go to move it in, it's just keeping the other vertices here in the center because it will not allow itself to move past that central point. It works the other way as well. If I pull it away from the center, it won't allow vertices to move away from that central point either. So once you have something there, if you need to move it away, just uncheck your clipping, move it away, and then recheck it. But for now, I'm just gonna keep clipping on. So once we have that set up, our border's a little boring. You can modify it if you'd like. My favorite way to modify a border like this is to select the vertices here and do Control B. And I can round that out, or I can just make it look kind of neat and a bit sharper by scrolling to change how many edges are on this. So I can select even multiple parts of my mesh for this. So long as you don't have a face select, this bevel tool, Control B, will work. Basically the same. If you have a face selected, it's not going to work quite as well. So there's my bevel tool. I've done a cute little bevel on the edges here. I could even go into, let's see. Let's maybe go into our corners here. Thank you for the follow, Ewok. I appreciate it. But let's maybe go into the corners here. Into the follows? What? And I can Control B, bevel these as well. Now, there's one problem with doing this, and I'll show you. It's probably best for me to separate the mesh, and I'll show you how to do this. Now that I've, skipped a step, there's an easy fix for this. So if I do Control B, let me show you. We've now created an n-gon in the center here. And that's not great. We don't want n-gons. That's what this has created. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertices that create this face. That's not great. We don't want that. Your face is an n-gon. You're not wrong? I can't say you're wrong. But let's go on ahead and we'll, to fix this, because I should have separated the border earlier, I will select these different faces here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'll just kind of leave the selection at that. I'll go Shift. Actually, no. Let's go on ahead and P separate so that I can H to hide this, and we'll just kind of work with this for a moment. I can tap L and kind of move this out until those line up. Go into my edge select, G, Z, until it lines up with the other edge that I see I have there. Let's make sure I'm in front view here. And I'll grab both of these for this. G, Z. Line it up with that edge. Grab this, GX. Line it up here, and I'm noticing that these aren't lining up perfectly. That's fine. That means I'm actually fixing a part by doing this. So now I can take my bottom part here. I'll view from a top view, which is 7. GX, and move this out. And then I'll, just to do these both at the same time, I'll select all of it, and I'll do SY, and it'll just scale it on that axis. I'm noticing I forgot to do this part, so let's go 1, and then to view it from a back view, 9, G, X. So 1 was front view, 9 was reverse my view, G was move, X was which axis I wanted. And now I can go on ahead and go into my vertex select, and I'll select these 2 vertices, M at center. Now I can select the 3 vertices that make up this down here, M at center. 2 here, M at center. 3 here, M at center. 2 here, M at center. And finally, 2 here, M at center. And now If I tab back into object mode and do Alt-H, which is to unhide what I have. Let's rehide our top here because we're not ready for that. It looks exactly the same. However, we now have the ability to go back into our border, reselect these edge parts here, and then actually let me go into edge select so I'm not selecting faces. And then we can redo our bevel so that I can have those, maybe let's turn it up and have like a curved edge to the border of our mesh here. And I'll do that for like all my different corners here. So we've got kind of a harsher bevel for the outer edge, and then for the corners, we've kind of rounded them out to just kind of give it a range of different looks. You can go in and you can even control R on different parts here. Actually, control R. Yeah. Let's see. Actually, we've got an N-gon right here. So I'm noticing N-gons that are popping up because bevel's not perfect. So I can actually go into this. Now I could merge these vertices together, or I could also take advantage of my cut tool that I really want to show you, my fancy little tool. I'm going to go into a vertex select. And a good way to turn this back into a quad is to tap K for cut. And once this outline's in red, it means I'm on that vertex. So I'll click on that and I'll pull my mouse over to this other vertex. Click on that and I'll tap, and you'll see that it's a little knife for cutting. Tap enter and it's just created an edge there between the different points of my mesh. Let's see, do I have that anywhere else? I absolutely do. So let's go to front view, see it right here. Let's go K, select that vertex, and let's just pull this all the way over to the center of my mesh. I don't need to be specific with this because it just kind of goes past my mirror modifier here. Let's tap 9 to check the other side. Yep, sure enough, that's there. Okay. Vertex. Cut it across. I like when I make mistakes in the middle of a tutorial. And I'm not being sarcastic about that, because then it kind of allows me to show you guys how to clean up your mesh if there is a problem that you end up having. There's another approach I could have taken to this, by the way, which is I could select this, this, and this. Oh, make sure I select the central one on the edge last, and I can go M at last, which is at last selected. And that's gonna also help clean up your mesh if you wanted to do it that way. So M at last. Let's go ahead and do this. M at last. Typically, if I were making this into an actual product, this would be my best way. This would be my best way of handling this. Go here, M at last. Let's go here, here, M at last. Here, here, M at last. Here, here, at last. And I'll just kind of clean this up a little bit. Is there multiple here? There sure as hell are. There we go. I do believe that is now completely cleaned up. Never mind. Okay, so I've got hidden vertices here, so I can select all. And honestly, let's just try doing by distance. And I removed 4 vertices. Is it the vertices that were giving me trouble? Sure is. I can see, by the way, let me undo that. There we go. I can see, by the way, if there's multiple here by looking at which lines are glowing orange. So if I right click in the same spot again, now I can see there's 3 lines here glowing orange, but for whatever reason, these 2 aren't when they should be. So I can just select all M by distance. And now if I go to select it to double check what happened, I can see that those 2 were merged because all of the edges connected to this are now lit up. So now we have kind of this problem where I want this nice smooth edge here, but I've kind of got this jagged set of lines. It's not really preferred. So we're going to go into, it's called object data properties, but I just call it the 3 dots because it's 3 dots in a triangle over where your modifiers are found. We're going to go into a tab called normals, and we're going to enable something called auto smooth. Now what this is going to do is it's going to smooth your object. Well, it's going to help smooth your object, but also keep some of those edges nice and sharp as needed. Because if I turn this off and I go object and shade smooth to kind of get this softer, you'll see I lose some of that nice hard edging on a lot of my object. So I'm going to go auto smooth, and that kind of fixes my problem here. But I'm also going to turn up the angle just to be absolutely sure. And you can see some parts of what I'm doing is disappearing. But if I turn this up to just under 90%, or 90 degrees, sorry. If I turn it up to just under 90 degrees, this will make it so only 90-degree angles are going to be automatically sharpened. And what sharpening is if I select these and go Control E, mark sharp, that edge has now become sharp again. And it just gives me a little bit of better control of what's sharp and what's soft. So we'll go here, Control E, mark sharp. Mark sharp. Actually, this edge is selecting a bit odd, so I'll have to select this differently. Mark sharp, there we go. And now you'll see this is kind of giving me a little bit of extra room to play with stuff. So let's go on ahead and go in and mark all of our edges that we want sharpened. Let's select this edge here. Mark sharp. Mark sharp. Not everything's going to select properly. I'm selecting whole sets of vertices, by the way, by holding Alt and right-clicking. That selects basically what's called a loop, which is just kind of a line of vertices or edges. But I'm just holding Alt and Shift and right-clicking to select an entire row. So we'll go Control E, mark sharp, and I'll hold Alt, right-click, and see that whole edge loop has now been selected. I can do Control E, mark sharp. Spiffy. Control E, mark sharp. By the way, I'm sorry if you guys are getting ads. I can't exactly stop them because Twitch is kind of frustrating in that way. However, this is one reason why I say just wait till it's on YouTube. You'll be able to refer back to it and you won't have to worry about ads. I was waiting until the ad was likely over because I saw you guys mentioning it. I was trying to wait till the ad was over before saying like, hey, YouTube is going to allow you to watch this better. So I'm going to Control E, mark sharp at the bottom of my mesh here because this is just in the bottom of my box. So we've got just like a cute looking little box here. You can add different, maybe you want to put a line here in the center. I don't know. You can extrude it, X-axis. There you go. Let's make sure we X faces because there was a face that was on the edge of that extrusion there. And maybe let's make sure we have this and this selected. I'll go ahead and select these in here as well. And I can shrink on a Z-axis. I used my middle mouse to select that. And there's a bunch of different ways you can modify this. Maybe you like how this edge has shown up. I don't like it, but there's a bunch of different ways you can modify this mesh. I want to see you get creative with the tools that you learn when you do your homework. The more creative you are, the more, I don't know, brownie points with the big Coomer that you'll get. So when you do your homework, creativity is key. The more creative you get, the more you'll learn. Please don't be afraid to get creative. because I am always here to help answer your questions, to help you with your projects. So to continue, actually I could have probably just selected this. Let's go EX. Yeah, that would have made a much better selection for that. Let's select this front view, front view, S, this. Yeah, it's still not perfect, but let's see. I can also probably tab G twice to bring this down as well. So that's kind of a different look as well. You can make like a beveled kind of edge here. Let's mark sharp, so you can see that a little better. It's kind of a neat looking little beveled edge for you to put, I don't know, some kind of decor on. Don't be afraid to leave a lot of the decor that you maybe want to texture onto this up to just the texture. So for example, the wood texture for this box portion of the mesh, don't be afraid to just slap a random wood plank texture onto it. You don't have to worry about meshing out each individual plank. You can leave that flat, mesh and texture the wood in later. Sometimes that even makes a much nicer hand-painted look that is preferred in comparison to something that looks a little more realistic. I know I prefer a more hand-painted look. So let's go into object mode, let's Alt-H, and we'll get our, the top of our chest going. So I'm going to also on this set auto smooth. Let's go object, shade smooth. Let's turn up our angle again to just under 90% or 90 degrees. I don't know why I keep saying percent. Good job. I'll press tab. Let's go ahead and sharpen the edges here. I don't have this one cut in half actually. So let's view from front view. Let's go V. This is another way to cut your mesh in half, and I'll right click again to cancel the move. And then I can select this side and tap L. And now everything that's on this side is selected. So let's go X, vertices, that's gone. Back up to my modifiers over here on the right. We're gonna go to mirror. And we've got our mesh now re-mirrored. And I can re-enable our shade smooth so that the edge of my mesh here is sharpened again like I want. I can see that there is an edge right here that's sharpening in a way that I don't want. So, oh, okay. So it undid my under 90 degree, not percent, little edit here. There we go. So now I can see it's all smooth across the top, just like I want. So now I'm going to go on ahead and we're going to tab into edit mode, Control R. That's where I want my line to be. So I'm gonna vaguely kind of line it up with what's down here. Let's actually select our lid and make it a little bit bigger than what's below it, just for, I don't know, nicer look. And then I will, this is also a little bit small here. So this would be where I would want my border to be on the top of the lid. However, I think it's a little bit small. So I'm going to double tap G because this is going to move my selection along the edges here. And I'm going to view this from a different angle so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. So G will do this, but double tapping G will allow me to move the selection along these edges. Kind of like a slide option. And I'm just gonna slide this up to, actually it's be from a front view to do this so I can kind of gauge how thick this is gonna be. Right here. That's not bad. I don't hate it. And then on the side view, we've got an end gone. So I'm going to select all of this, X faces. Let's actually go to the bottom of our lid here. I'm gonna hide this stuff down here so we can kind of get a better view of what we're doing. I'm gonna select these edges down here and tap F for face to create a face. And I'm going to, I'm actually going to show a neat thing you can do with using F for face. If I select just these two and tap F, it will auto-fill what's in front of it. So that's fun to play around with. I'll play around with like maybe a cylinder doing that. Depending on the situation. Sometimes it does very oblong, weird looking shapes. Control E, mark sharp. So now I have a couple of options. I can E to extrude and shrink this down. However, that doesn't exactly keep this right here, this little edge that I want to have across going here. Going across here. I didn't sleep much. So I'm going to start by just selecting these bottom edges here, and I'm going to do F to fill that in so that I have the edge there that I want first. And then I can go in and let's actually exclude this edge here, like these end vertices at the bottom here for now. I'm just going to extrude, shrink, and let's go on ahead and let's go G, Z. And I'll go on ahead and move this down. Maybe I'll increase the size of that a little bit just to kind of adjust where these vertices are. And now I can side view, Control R, and just kind of line up these edges with what's going on the sides here. And then I can do my fun little select F, select F. Because I'm gonna want a border in here as well. Let's go ahead and adjust this until it has the border shape that I want. And then I'll hold Alt right click to select all of that. And I can just view from a front view, E to extrude in. And then I can let's grab the bottom and let's tap F, F. And then actually, you know what? Yeah, that creates a nice little group of faces there. That's workable. That looks good to me. They're all quads, so it's not really a problem. I'll go ahead and select this around here, Control E, mark sharp, just to make sure that's nice and sharp how I want it. And then, thank you, Seth, by the way. I see what you're saying in chat. I do appreciate that. I'm gonna, let's remove the edges, or let's go into edge select and remove this edge and this edge. So I just kind of have that ring of edges in there selected, and Control E, mark sharp. There we go. So now, let's go on ahead and finalize our border up here. So using my Alt right click method, I've selected a bit more than I wanted. So I'll go into my front view here because it's kind of an easier way to do that. And let's actually use C select this time. And I can scroll up and down to change maybe this brush size. Think of it as like a paintbrush. And I can hold, there's a weird button for this, but bear with me. Middle mouse, I can hold that to kind of brush and stroke over my selection. Since I am in wireframe mode, this will go through my object and select what's on the other side as well. And I can just kind of, I've selected there where I wanted that to deselect, and right clicked to stop that. And now all of what I didn't want selected, isn't selected anymore. So let's go into maybe face select actually, because I realize I kind of want to select all of this. There we go. And I can do E to extrude, right click, and let's see what Alt S does. Alt S kind of has a better way to scale that down. So I'm going to scale it down using Alt S to about here. I have this row of faces that have popped up. An ugly, ugly row of faces that are absolutely not fun to have here. So I'm going to go into Edge Select. Let's select all of these. No, that's not what I want. So let's go to our face select. And I'll just select each of these manually, holding Shift to add to my selection, X, faces. And that kind of got rid of that. Now I can do what we did on the bottom part of our chest, because of course it's the same chest, we want it to match. And I can do Control Bevel and make sure that it's set down to only 2. Bevel it like this. I'm in edge select, so I can go and deselect these edges that I do not want sharpened. And then Control E, mark sharp. And there's that look that I wanted. Let's go ahead and add that over here. Control B. Let's make it a bit smaller on this side because I'm not liking how it looks being bigger. And well, this one already like auto sharpened. So that's honestly nice. So I don't have to worry about deselecting all that to sharpen. So now I'm going to, again, I've done a dump. And this is actually going to become an end-gon if I bevel. Remember. So let's go ahead and fix this because I have done the dumb. Do the dumb. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these edges here. It's a little bit hard to see with the blue from sharpening. However, I do believe I have all of that selected. So I'm going to V. Separate that. Let's go ahead and tap L on this. Yep, that separated correct. And L on this. That separated correct. So let's P selection to separate it. I'll go ahead and hide this. And I'm just gonna rinse and repeat what we did before. GX to bring this out to about here. And then these I'm gonna connect in kind of a special way. But for now, I'm just gonna kind of take these edges here. Let's view from a side view. G, Z, move them down a bit. All right, so these I have to connect a little bit differently. I'm gonna go ahead and select this first, then this. M at last. It's similar than before, but a little bit less lining up. Select, select, M at last. If you ever get confused what your last selection was, by the way, you can look at which one is highlighted in white. So you'll see we have two vertices here. One is orange and the other is currently white. If I were to shift and select back on this one, now that one turns white. So your last selection will always be that extra color. So I'll do M at last, M at last, at last, and so on and so forth. So now let's Alt H. And we have that part of our chest back again. Let's go ahead and select here and here. Oh, I don't want the faces there. So let's go into face select and, or actually no. Go into edge select and reselect this. It's kind of a lot of playing around with what kind of selections you want to get the outcome that you're looking for. I'll go ahead and Control B to bevel. And I'll turn up how many edges this has. And I'm noticing here, did I do this on the bottom as well? I did. So I'm noticing here we've got an end-gon right here, right on the edge of where I'm making this. So this is one of those things where maybe making a triangle isn't too bad because this isn't going to be rigged by any means. And if it is, any triangles here aren't really going to matter. So what I can do to fix these end-gons, because this is going to cause our unwrap or our UV map to possibly act a little funny, is I can do K, and I can just kind of bring it across and then down to the corner. Let's go up here, back to this, Enter, K, and I'll go ahead and do that here. There we go. So it'd be nice if, let me go ahead and tap G to slide this along and kind of clean up my topology in that spot at least. It'll be nice to, if you guys choose to show a decent amount of pictures for your homework, if you do choose to turn in your homework, it'd be nice to see your topology like this if you'll post a picture like that. I would highly prefer being able to see your topology, so maybe I can help you understand places to improve. Because obviously we all make mistakes. I'm sitting here making mistakes right now. But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna go through and do all of these right now. This end-gon might cause me some problems. I actually might need to go in and do all of those right now. How many edges does this have? 1, 2, 3, 4, perfect. let's go ahead. I'm actually going to go in and do these now because I'm realizing I don't want to show you guys a jank way to do your UV maps. And I know that n-gons can sometimes cause a UV map to act a little funny. So I'm not being too insanely precise with where I put these until I have them down, because then it's easier to just slide them apart by double tapping G to kind of pretty up my topology here. And I have not yet beveled these, so let's go into edge select here. And here, let's bevel. I've got that same n-gon from before here, so I'll go on ahead and at last, here, M at last. And so we'll clean this up again. At last. And then at last. So we've got that cleaned up, and I can now actually go in and kind of change how this topology is sitting. Just to kind of better reflect that. Let's go ahead and edit this. So keeping your topology clean and set to quads is going to be your best friend through all of this, no matter how tedious. One thing to keep in mind is 3D modeling is less about skill, more about patience, because patience is going to be key with doing a lot of the fixes or edits that you need to do to your mesh. You're going to notice little things that maybe you forgot to do before. So like I'm noticing little sharpens that I forgot to do before. Little stuff like that. 3D modeling is zero skill, all patience. Let's see. So I don't have sharps on these part here as well. I'm noticing there's actually a weird cut going on right here. So let's go ahead and mark sharp, and then I'll take a look at this edge, and I'll go M at last. And that should have cleaned that up, but just to be sure, I'll go M by distance with all selected. I have 0 vertices that are a problem. So that's nice. That's preferred. Let's go ahead and clean up this corner here. I could actually, since these corners connect, I could be doing this as well. Just kind of bring it corner to corner. Or edge to corner and edge to corner. Enter. And then clean it up afterwards. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. Whichever way you're most comfortable is obviously going to be the best way. So I'll go on ahead, and I like to have all of this kind of evenly spaced out. You don't really have to. It's more of just a personal preference. Honestly, leaving it like this would be just fine. But it's a personal preference to have all of these spaced out. Just for the sake of I don't know, I guess organization. Let's go ahead and go down to this. This has a lot of them. So let's maybe leave some of these the way that I mentioned before. So let's go ahead and clean up this corner. Okay. Oh, go to this, enter. Okay. Here. Oh. Okay. Here. By the way I just canceled that right there is I realized that I selected the wrong part, and I just right-clicked and it canceled it. So I didn't have that selection anymore to be cut because it was the wrong selection. So that's okay. Let's actually start up here so that I can do more of a cut before ending. Enter. Okay. Here. Enter. And let's go on ahead and do this up top. I'm gonna have to hide my lid parts. And then we'll go on ahead and cut these up. There we go. Oh, let me double check to make sure that was on the vertex. So I'm not making new vertices. The reason that I'm waiting for these to be connected to the vertex is because if I click just near the vertex, it's going to create another vertice there that I don't want. Vertex, vertices. Many a complex language. What is English but a figment of our fucking imagination? Let's go on ahead and get these. And then one more. Beautiful. Probably bothering people that that's one, or that one of those corners is different. That's fine. I just won't show it to you anymore. But there's a bunch of different ways you can customize the top of this as well. You could, again, add like another line, going across like up here maybe. You can, let's see, I have that right. So you can do E, X, let's actually enable our clipping, G, X, keep that in, X, faces. And now I've got like a cool little thing going across the top. I could select this and bevel it. Turn it down though. Select this and bevel it. Select these, Control E, mark sharp. Make kind of a neat bevel up there. Of course, I wouldn't want these set to mark sharp, so let's Control E, clear sharp. Control E, clear sharp. That looks neat. I like that. You know, it just takes a lot of playing with to kind of understand what you're gonna want to make here. And then once you have all of that done, actually, let's go ahead and what's the inside of our box look like? Not great. It's not there. Let's go ahead and select this. Because our lid needs an inside. Actually, I'm going to view from like a weird angle like this. I'm going to E, Z, and we're just going to pull it up to like here. I do have that extra face showing up again. So let's select it, X, faces. There we go. Here's the inside of my lid. And I could honestly go in and select this face and go GX. Just to kind of make that look a little nicer. And it's auto sharpening down here because of the angle that all of these parts are at. So now we have our chest. I'm going to leave it like this. You can customize yours however you see fit, but I'm leaving mine a little more like this. I'm going to grab this bottom box here and our border, and I'm going to do Control J for join. And then I can tab back into edit mode, and we're going to now UV map our mesh. So I'm going to, up in the top right here, you'll see there's a little bend in the windows. It's not the best mechanic in Blender, but this little bend between the two little windows, if you click on that and you drag it out, you'll see it opens another view. Now, some people can use this as like a secondary view for your mesh. But if you go up to the very top left here and you click, you can set this to UV editor. And oh man, it's already been auto UVing our mesh, but I'm seeing a lot of problems in overlapping faces. So let's go on ahead and go back into this window. I'm gonna tap U, unwrap. So this might look a little bit terrifying, but I promise it's honestly not all that difficult to understand. This is how our mesh has unwrapped, the same way as the cube that I mentioned before. Now, if you say maybe you want the inside, which is this right here, the inside of your chest, to be a completely separate little piece here, you can do what's called marking seams. So I can go into here. Let's go to edge select. I'm going to select this here. Typically, the less seams you have, the better, because it'll be easier to texture the way that you want. However, some circumstances call for the requirement of a seam. So I have here, I'll select this edge where I want it to cut on my UV map. I'll go Control E, mark seam, and it'll turn red. I can reselect all of it, U, unwrap, and now that's completely separated. And I just kind of have this X here. Now, I'm seeing here that there's a bit of an extra... Why is that white? Let's go ahead and select all, M by distance, unwrap. Interesting. Typically, a white face like this means that there's an overlap, but I can tell by selecting these vertices, just like in 3D view, that there's no actual vertex overlap. So I think that face just kind of changed color. So now I can move these around on my map however the fuck I want. Let's scoot this up. L. Scoot this up over here. I'll go ahead and let's rotate this and throw it off to the side because I have another one that I need to add. This is obviously your border. You can cut this up however makes it easier for you to recognize to texture. But you'll be able to follow the lines of this UV map when you bring it into another program to kind of understand how to texture it properly. This is also a really good way to kind of take a good look at like the layout of your topology, because that's what this is. This is your topology in a flat format. And kind of look to see, okay, where's my tries? Do I have any n-gons still? No, okay. I have a bunch of tries, but that's okay. If I do Control V here, it'll do what's called relaxing the UV. And if I scroll, you can see what it's doing. I actually don't want to relax this UV because it's kind of making it a weird shape and it's going to make texturing this kind of a hassle. So I want to keep this as similar to the original shape as possible, and it's already pretty similar the way it is. So I'm going to go ahead and Alt-H in object mode to unhide my stuff. Remember, whatever mode you've hidden something in is the mode you have to unhide it in. So if I am in edit mode and I've hidden maybe this selection of edges here, I can't just go into object mode and unhide it. I have to be in edit mode to Alt-H unhide. So let's rehide this. I'll go into this selection here. Let's go to face select actually. And I'll select this row of faces and hide it. So now that entire row of faces is kind of just missing. If I do Alt-H in this mode, you'll see my top of my chest isn't coming back because I'm in edit mode, not object mode. So it's only affecting what I've got selected. I can, however, make multiple selections while in edit mode. So I'll select this portion and this portion here, and I'll go ahead and join the parts of the lid. And then I can take the bottom selection, shift, right click top selection, and instead of control join, I'll just tab back into edit mode, and now I can select all of it together. I can select this and edit, and I can select this and edit. Thank you for the follow, Yavi Prog, I believe the name is. So now that I have that all selected, or all in edit mode, I want all of this to be on the same, what's called UV map. So I'm going to select the top parts of my chest here. I'm going to U, unwrap. And I'm noticing that this very uppermost bar right here did not unwrap properly. So let's try LH. Let's see. Is there an open face down here? There is not. So I want to open up this face to make it a little easier to unwrap. So let's remove that face. And then if I Alt-H, you'll see I can't see the difference. However, if I tap L on these, you always want an open end for this. Now there's a new bit of shape here. That's where that went. So I'm going to tap L on this in my UV image editor. Let's shrink it down. Let's just kind of position it on our UV map. Let's grab this, which is the wood of my chest here. And I'll go on ahead and put it up here with the rest of my wood. And there's my UV map. That is what I would color on. You can go on ahead and edit it as much as you want. Again, we've got like the inside of the chest, head, top, whatever, that you can separate. But it's not really necessary. Because there's no, I guess, texture stretching that's going on. There's no stressed vertices that are going to cause anything bad to happen here. So we have our UV map here. Now, if I wanted to export this in order to use it, I would go up here to the top. I could determine a size actually by up at the top clicking new. And let's do 2048 by 2048 here. Let's click OK. This is now a 2048 by 2048 image. And see, I have a cursor in this as well. And this is actually a differently shaped cursor. This is a diamond instead of the circle that's on the other side. This only has X and Y, but not Z. And there's 1.5 million ways you could modify this UV map. You could even go in and like move the vertices manually. It's not recommended, however, but in some cases you might need to, if you've maybe got overlapping faces. But when it comes to simply just making your original UV, just do this. It's easy. It's better for as far as texture stretching goes, to just kind of unwrap and leave it at the organic shape that it creates. So I'll go ahead and go to UV, and at the very bottom of that, I'll go to export UV layout. So now I've got an area where I can kind of pick where to export this, and I can go chest UV map right here at the bottom. And export UV layout. Now that's going to export that as a PNG. If I pop open my file here, I can now, let's go to where I saved it. I can now open up this image and you'll see it's just a PNG. It has all the lines intact. I can open this in maybe Krita or GIMP or Photoshop and just kind of doodle on top of it to get my colors on here. Let's see. And that's kind of that. As far as like exporting a shape or a mesh from here, you can also add, for example, on the chest, by the way, if you want to add maybe a lock, you can add it to your UV as well. I forgot to do the lock. Let's go Shift S, cursor to world origin. I'll add mesh. Let's add a cube. Tab into edit mode. I'll go on ahead and shrink this down. Let's shrink it this way as well. And I'll slap that on the front of my chest here. And let's cut this in half. I will do V, L, X, vertices, add, mirror. This should be a process that you get very, very accustomed to because you're going to do it on most of the stuff you make. So I'm going to select maybe this edge here. Let's go Control B. Bevel it to look a little cool. I don't want to bevel it too much. And I'll go down here, Control B. Bevel it to look a little cool. I can actually, let's increase the size of this a little bit and pull it out. Let's go G. Nope, G. Nope, GX. Let's enable my clipping to make sure I am moving this around right. And now I can, so we've got an N-gon here, but I'm going to kind of ignore it for now because I kind of want to extrude. And so my extrusion's acting a little funny, so I'm going to right click and I'm actually just going to scale it down because that's all I really want from this extrusion is the ability to scale it down. And I'm going to X faces here. We're going to reselect that. I'm going to go into vertex select, and actually a neat little trick is to go W, loop tools, circle. And now I've made that a little more circular. So now I can go, let's go maybe K. And I'll cut here, here. And actually, I'll go ahead and go all the way around just so I don't end up getting any triangles. I'm not going to use all these vertices, but at least I don't have any triangles on my mesh. So I'll go ahead and select this here. Let's X faces. And let's make this a little more like the keyhole that we're trying to create. And now I can select all of this. And I can... What is this song? I see. There we go. So I can now take my keyhole, extrude it inwards. Let's make sure it's going on a Y-axis here, so it's only going backwards. And I'll grab the bottom and just do our fancy little F. Oh, it's not gonna go up. All right. So let's go ahead and let's grab our central little vertex here. Let's go E, X, pull that together. Then I can select all of these and just kind of create a face at the back. Let's figure out how we're going to tackle this circle now. So let's grab this edge here, E, X, pull it in till it connects. I can grab this here. Actually, I could have grabbed all three of this. Okay, so all four of these here, E, X, pull that in. It'll flatten in the center because it's not going to go past the center. Then I can grab these, F, these, F, and there's my faces there. I can go in and even do my auto smoothing. But remember, in order for that to work properly, you have to go Object, Shade Smooth. And then I like to turn up the angle so that we don't get things hardening or sharpening that we don't want sharpened. And I keep it at just below 90 degrees because that kind of auto sharpened everything that I wanted sharpened in that. So now our chest has a little lock. And if I want to add this to my UV map first, because I think it'll look nicer, I'm gonna scoot this back until it kind of intersects with the rest of the chest here. Yep, there we go. What has happened here? Something has happened to cause that to not work right, so I'm just gonna actually, let's deselect this. Let's go GX. Nope, Y. GY. Move that in. There we go. Oh, that's what's going on. Actually, I don't need to move that in. It's this edge here that's sharpening. Where is that edge coming from? That edge is, okay. That is the inside of my chest. So let's scale this on the Y-axis to kind of bring it in a little bit, make it taper so it's not clipping. That's better. And now that this is intersecting with the rest of my mesh, I can open up that back portion there. And then if I unwrap it, it kind of opens a little better. Let me show you what happens if I don't open that back portion. If I try to unwrap this as is, oh, actually it does it from, because we've got an open edge along here. So it's not bad. I just like to get rid of this face because it is actually an end-gon right now. So it's you, unwrap. That's gonna be a really easy to texture little piece of UV. So I'm going to then hold Shift and select this stuff. Let's go on ahead and select everything so I can see all of my UV. And I'll just slot this in right here. We now have a nice little lock on our chest. And it's honestly best to keep all of this together and then Control J. Everything's together. It's all mirrored. You'll have an easier time texturing something if you have it mirrored. I will show you guys how to do asymmetrical stuff without changing how you're UV mapping later on. However, this is kind of just the easiest way to UV map to ensure that the texture that you do kind of turns out a little easier to make for when you're first starting off. So now that we've got that, that's pretty much the end of how to do that. You can go into your art program. I like to use Krita. And you can just open up the PNG of your UV map and doodle on top of it to create your texture. But actually, to show texturing, I want to show you guys what your, I guess, homework reward would be. And kind of sample texture that. So I have this right here. This is what you guys are going to be getting when you turn in your homework. You will get this blend file of cute little cat that I made. You can use it for whatever you want. Again, it'll be Creative Commons license. But I'm actually going to export this UV map that I made. And I'm going to show you guys how to texture this. So let's go cat UV. Export. Go ahead and pop this open and let me change my screen just real quick. I'm gonna do this. Okay, good. You never know what's gonna pop up, or where your screen's gonna pop up certain things in the middle of a stream, and I'd like to not get banned on Twitch, or I guess in this case YouTube. So let me go ahead and open cat UV. There it is. What size is this image? Not big enough. 2048, please. Is my preferred size. So this might look a little crazy. There's a lot that we're looking at here. I'm not gonna fully texture this thing. I am, however, going to plug in my tablet and show you a bit about how to find different parts of the mesh and how to test your texture within Blender. So I'm just gonna go on ahead. I'm gonna set this to multiply here. Now remember, you don't have to use Krita. You can use whatever art program that you have. I'm gonna go ahead and make an orangey kind of ginger cat here. Set this to multiply. Let's turn down the opacity on this because I'm not gonna need this UV map. But let's make a nice cream color here. And I'm going to, so I can see here, I can pinpoint, let's grab this. I can pinpoint, here's my tail, right? That's where my tail is. Which kind of tells me this other end here, that's the head. So we've got, looking at this mesh, we've got a cute little cheek spike for cheek fur. We've got ears. So that tells me this bundle of UV right here is ear. This little bundle is the cheek spike. And so that makes this and this the legs. So I'm gonna go on ahead and let's outline a cute little section here to have maybe a lighter colored tummy. I'm gonna do that. I'm going to fill in my selection here by just kind of going outside of the UV. Now, if you're too close to the UV when you do this, you might get a bit of an odd look whenever someone zooms away from your mesh for wherever you're putting your mesh at later on. And I'm just gonna kind of color in the edge here because my art program doesn't do a good job of coloring this in for me. Now there's a lot of different blending methods I could put into this. I could have a lot of fun with texturing, and this is where the fun of knowing how to do 2D art kind of comes in. because you can really put those skills to use in this case and make your 3D art look incredible. But I'm just gonna kind of sloppily put this cat together. Let's go ahead and blur this. And then I'll take another brush and just kind of be sure that along the edges here, I have it solid. I just want to be absolutely sure, because this is where the mesh is going to connect here. I'll give it, I don't know, a cute little orangey tip of the tail as well. This is a mirrored UV map, so I don't have to worry about how this is going to connect along the edges here and here. It's when you get down to like the corners down here and here where it's supposed to connect to the leg itself instead of in the center, where you're gonna have to be a little bit careful with how you're texturing this. So I'm just adding some cute little accents of like a lighter color here. One version of blending this together. Hi, foxes, I see you. Thank you for the lurk. So just to add like a little bit of something so that you guys can kind of see where this detail is gonna go. It's very light, so it's a little bit hard to notice. But you will be able to see it. All right, and I'll hide my UV. I'm gonna go Control-Shift-Save. And I'm saving this as Ginger Cat. And let's go on ahead and go back into Blender here. And we will add what's called a material. So that's going to be this red little ball down here at the bottom over where you find your modifiers and everything. I'm going to go new material. And then we're going to lift this up because we want a good view of this. And we're going to change this over to shader editor. Now this is going to look a little bit intimidating because it's kind of a little spider web. But you're only really adding up here in the top left, kind of where my fat head is hiding. You're really just going to be adding a texture and then image texture. And you're just dragging the yellow dot here over to the yellow base color here. So connecting color to base color. And then I personally like to turn down specular and roughness. And what this allows me to do is if I go up to the top here, and you'll see there's, oh, actually that is not super visible. So let me scoot my window down here. You'll see there's a little group of icons here. You'll see one is wireframe. They're little circles. One is solid. And then we have material view. And so mine has currently turned black because there's not currently a texture in this node. So I'm going to open, and we are going to go to my Ginger Cat. And now you can see that work that I've put into it, all those cute little lines that I was drawing that seemed a little faded, are now kind of applying themselves to this mesh, and it's very, very precious. So now I can go in and let's maybe, if I wanted to draw eyes, I can, just like any normal 2D art, I can grab a cute little brush. And I can do any style of eye that I want. Let's go on ahead and add, I don't know, maybe some cute little eyelashes to it. Make him ooh-woo. I will absolutely make him ooh-woo just for you. That should be where the mouth goes. And then I'm going to, let's grab a cute little pink color here. And I can doodle on this little portion here. to make the nose a cute little pink color. So let's finish up our eyes here. I'm gonna go to this layer, grab this white. Here we go. And then I can add an eye color. Let's give him some cute little blue eyes. I don't like that. Let's go ahead and just make it a little nicer here. And then on top of that, I can do like a cute little cat pupil. Now, I don't know how this is gonna look. This thing could look insanely derpy once I get this eye on here. So let's see. Let's Control S to save, and then I'll tab back over. And let's folder, update. Little bit derpy, but you can move stuff around and adjust it as needed. Baby doing a woo. The collar on this is this bar down here. So we have, I'm gonna color these in for you so you can kind of get an understanding of where this will go. And this is just, if you want to customize your cat, this is how you'll want to go about it, because it'll create the cutest look. And I'll explain a little bit about how to do shading for stuff like this too. So let's do silver here. Let's go ahead and do a nice little golden bell. So I can just color this little blob here, because that's where the bell is. And let's give him a red collar. Now, I don't want my red to be too stark. Let's go ahead and give him that kind of red. And I'll go ahead and color in this nice little red collar here. Now, I'm going to use the collar for my shading example. Because shading is also going to help your mesh pop out. You don't want to just add some flat color on here and then be done with it, because that's not going to help your work. In order to make some nice, like a nice standing out kind of mesh, you're going to want to shade it a little bit. So I'll go on ahead. Let's take my box select here, and I'm going to select this. And I'll add another layer. Let's fill it with black. So I always find it best to shade with black and white. You don't need to, but it is typically preferred. So I'll shade with black, and I'll do overlay. And then I will use this again, and I will select a small layer in here. Let's actually increase that a little bit. Here we go. And I will Control X, select, deselect, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. You can use whatever you want in your art program of choice that you know you are most comfortable with. This is just how I'm going to work with this. I am just using black and white in an overlay kind of setup to do my shading. You can, however, shade this however you are most comfortable with. Let your fucking creativity show through your textures. Oh my god, will it look amazing. So let's go ahead and add some highlight as well. Now, this is a super basic way to texture this collar. There's a lot of more aggressive ways I could go about this to make it a lot fancier. However, this little bit of shading, if I save it real quick, you'll notice it goes from this flat look to kind of something with a little bit more depth. I can actually add a bit more of this darker tone here. I'll catch up on YouTube later. Alrighty, thank you for dropping by, Pink Cow. So let me go ahead and update this texture again. And you can see that little bit of depth kind of adds a lot more to the collar. So shading your mesh is honestly very preferred with whatever you're doing. But I'm not going to go too in depth with this. I don't want you guys to follow me bit by bit when it comes to texturing your cat. I want you guys to have fun with this because this isn't meant to be homework. This is meant to be fun for you to customize. I just wanted to show you a little bit about how you can do that and how you can preview it within Blender to be able to do that. If you find yourself seeing your cat like this or like this again, remember up at the very top of your screen, the spheres, one of them does this. The very far right one will throw you into this kind of view, which is not really what you're looking for. It's second to last on the right kind of thing, in order to get this nice flat view here. But yeah, that kind of concludes the at least tutorial part of this. I will go on ahead and be ending my YouTube recording. So bye YouTube, thanks for watching. I hope this was at least helpful for some of you. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks because I'll be doing these every other Friday. I have a whole rubric of lessons that I'll be going through to eventually work you guys up to building maybe your own VR chat models or VTuber models in the end. But for now, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. Goodbye, YouTube.